My name is Ethan, and this happened when I was 17 years old. My best friend Ryan and I decided to spend a weekend camping in a forest near Oregon. The first day was perfect. We hiked through the woods, cooked food over a campfire, and spent the evening laughing and telling stories. Everything felt normal. Everything felt safe. Around midnight, we went into our tents and fell asleep. A few hours later, I suddenly woke up. At first, I thought a bird had made a strange sound. Then I heard it again. A whistle. Slow and eerie. Coming from somewhere outside my tent. I sat up and listened carefully. The whistle came again. This time closer. Ryan's tent was only 20 feet away. I whispered his name, but there was no answer. Then the whistling stopped completely. The forest became silent. Too silent. A few seconds later, I heard footsteps. Crunch. 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 Something was walking around my tent. Slowly. Deliberately. The footsteps circled my tent once. Then twice. I couldn't move. I couldn't breathe. Finally, I gathered enough courage to unzip my tent slightly and look outside. Nobody was there. But on the soft dirt beside my tent were bare human footprints. The terrifying part was that the footprints suddenly stopped, as if whoever made them had simply vanished. The next morning, Ryan admitted he had heard the same whistling. Neither of us could explain it. We packed our gear immediately and left the forest. Neither of us ever camped there again. The second story happened in 2024. I went camping alone near a remote lake in Montana. The area was isolated, and there were no other campers around. At least, that's what I thought. As night fell, I sat beside my campfire, watching the flames dance in the darkness. Around 11 o'clock, I noticed something strange. Across the lake stood a woman. She wasn't moving. She wasn't walking. She was simply standing there, watching me. At first, I assumed she was another camper. But something felt wrong. 20 minutes passed, and she hadn't moved an inch. Not once. The longer I looked at her, the more uncomfortable I became. Eventually, I climbed into my tent. Around 3 in the morning, I woke up suddenly. Something was touching the outside of my tent. Slowly dragging across the fabric. Scrape. 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 The sound continued for almost a minute. Then it stopped. I stayed frozen inside my sleeping bag until sunrise. When morning came, the woman was gone. There were no footprints. No evidence. Nothing. Except a long strand of black hair lying near my fire pit. I packed my things and left immediately. The third story happened 3 years ago when my cousin Jake and I were camping deep inside a national forest. The nearest road was miles away. There shouldn't have been anyone else around. Around midnight, we sat beside our campfire when suddenly someone called my name. Ethan. The voice came from deep inside the trees. Jake looked at me. His face had gone pale. Nobody knew where we were. Nobody should have been there. A few minutes later, the voice returned. Ethan. The exact same tone. The exact same voice. Coming from the darkness. Jake grabbed a flashlight and shined it toward the woods. Nothing. Then branches started snapping. Something was moving between the trees. Every time we pointed our lights toward the sound, it stopped. Eventually, we retreated into our tent. Neither of us slept that night. At sunrise, we discovered footprints surrounding our campsite. Someone had been walking around us all night. Watching us. And somehow knew my name. The final story happened last summer. 5 friends and I went camping in a remote area of Colorado. The first night was amazing. We laughed, played music, and stayed up late around the campfire. Around 1 in the morning, one of our friends, Mark, stood up and said he was going to the restroom area. It was only a few hundred feet away. He should have been back within minutes. 10 minutes passed. Then 20. Then 30. Mark never returned. At first, we thought he was joking. But eventually, we became worried. We grabbed flashlights and began searching. For nearly 2 hours, we called his name. No answer. Then suddenly, a scream echoed through the darkness. We ran toward the sound and found Mark standing in a clearing, shaking uncontrollably. His clothes were covered in dirt. His flashlight was gone. He looked terrified. When we asked what happened, he refused to tell us. The only thing he said was, "Someone followed me." Even years later, Mark still refuses to explain what he saw that night. Whatever happened in those woods changed him forever. The wilderness can be beautiful. But when the campfire dies and darkness takes over, you realize just how vulnerable you really are. And maybe not every sound in the woods comes from an animal. Because sometimes something else is waiting in the darkness, watching, listening, and getting closer.